welcome back to the Cari Champion Show. Second hour in full swing here. My next guest is currently a defender on Angel City FC. She was also a violinist at Wake Forest while juggling soccer practices. I feel like I need romantic music behind this. She's also the very first Native American player in the National Women's Soccer League. Please welcome with a big round of applause, everybody. Madison Hammond. What I love about the world in which we live in, sports is so small. She kind of casually says to me, so I think you may know my sister. Like, no, I'm her friend. Me and her sister are legit, shout out to Michaela, we're legit friends. I'm all like, oh my God, small world. I know. So congratulations. I have said today's show, which I love, is about the undrafted. It's those who believe when others don't. I feel that way about myself. That has been my entire life story, and I love, love, love when I meet people who believe in themselves. Tell me how you went from being undrafted to getting actually now having, you're with Angel City FC is huge, and as opposed to being where you first started.
I mean, we only have so much time,
okay.
But basically it just was honestly me not wanting to give up and me just kind of wanting to level up at every possible opportunity. I went to school at Wake Forest University, and we didn't do that great my senior year, which honestly really affects your draft opportunities, especially if you're kind of not in like a program that's in the top 5 or top 2.
Sure.
So I was like, do I need to go abroad? Like, how do I need to kind of manage this? So I kind of made the decision to look abroad first, and I tried out for a couple of teams in Spain. And I remember sitting on a train going from the south of Spain to Madrid because I was trying for 2 different teams, and the draft was going on. And the first round went by, second round went by, third round went by, and then I just started bawling. And
Were you
I was
looking at it like, I'm better than her?
No, literally, it was literally like, man, really? And it was just one of those moments of like, wow, that sucks. And it wasn't really going the way I wanted it to in Spain. But then the NWSL is, I like to call it the Wild Wild West. It's gotten a lot better since I've become a pro. But basically, the team from Seattle, at the time, the Seattle Reign, they called me and they were like, we have your rights, and so you have to report to training camp with us. And I was like, all right, bet. Like, I'll meet you there, I guess.
Thanks.
And I took that opportunity. I was so excited. I prepared everything.
Yeah.
And a worldwide pandemic hit. And if you weren't a signed agent, then you had to basically go home. And they were like, we'll call you if we need you, kind of thing. And so
How heartbreaking.
it was so disorienting because the world was obviously in chaos and turmoil. But at the same time, I was like, you have to stay ready because what if they call you back? And fast forward, and a couple months later, I did get called back in. And that I always like to remind people that the NWSL was the first league to first professional league to come back to playing during COVID. We were the first ones to do a bubble. We were before the wobble. We were before the...
As per usual, women are leading the way.
As always.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just stayed very fit, and I went to training camp, and 3 weeks later they were like, will you please sign on this dotted line?
And you were like, absolutely.
I was like, please, do you need a Sharpie? Like, I just don't want this to be taken away. And then once I signed a contract, it was suddenly, you're about to be the first Native American to play in the NWSL. And I was like, can we get a fact check, please? So, yeah, I mean, I was very fortunate to kind of come across some of these circumstances, but what I like to say in this league is that nobody's journey looks the same, and if you're not drafted, there's so many girls on the team that aren't drafted, and so many players that have so many different journeys than being a first-round pick, second-round pick, and so I just like to kind of tout that with some pride. Okay,
so you leave Seattle, you come here. Talk to me about the reception. How did it all start? Did they love you? Do they love this? I mean, don't you feel like LA loves y'all?
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like it's enough love. I've been to a few games.
I think that being a part of this first inaugural season was just, one, it just felt so cool to be a part of bringing soccer back to LA.
Yeah.
And, having LA Galaxy and LAFC on the men's side, but then being able to create something completely different where we just out the gates had 22,000 fans packing out the stadium, and to be a part of something where it made our sport.
Beautiful, all of it. And I'm not just talking about where you can get the bars. I'm not talking about drinking, because I'm focused on said match, guys. Okay, go on.
No, but it's just, it's very indescribable how powerful it felt to be a part of that this year.
Yeah.
And I came late because I was traded a couple months into season from Seattle down here. And so I kind of had to like get my bearings a little bit because it was just, you know, new team, new people, got to make new friends. It's like first day of school, but then you're also trying to really lean into how cool of an opportunity it is to play in LA, to play in front of a packed out stadium. And so I think that, you know, on the field, we're obviously disappointed we didn't make playoffs this year.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think we're in such a good position for next year.
We're building.
And the fact that all the off the field stuff, our marketing, our branding is just leaps and bounds above all the other programs in the league. I think it'll just make our on the field journey so much better next year.
Yeah, talk about the marketing and the branding. Okay then. Okay then, all around. You know what? And speaking of marketing, branding, it's not something that you wanted to do, I guess intentionally, but I do love that you are, as you just mentioned, the first Native American in the league, and I don't know if you know how hard it is to find your voice as a woman in sports. It's just very difficult to find, like, to get in where you fit in and then still use your platform to speak unapologetically about things that matter to you. And shout out to Colleen for giving me, our producer, the background on this. So you made some headlines, and we're going to put up this quote. You made little headlines past summer when you responded to McCall Zerbroni, another player in the league, and she apparently made a reference that you thought was offensive. And here was what was said. I think there's a difference between experience and leadership, and there's a difference between playing a lot of years and being a winner. I think blending that all in, and you've got to have enough Indians, there can't be too many Chiefs. You responded by saying, I've spoken with McCall and I know she didn't intend harm, but phrases like too many Chiefs, powwow, sitting Indian style, and many more are rooted in brutal racism and are still way too common in our everyday lexicon. As the only Native American in the NWSL, I want to start a necessary conversation because phrases like these make Native Americans feel othered, invisible, and prove there is a lack of understanding and respect for indigenous culture. They may seem harmless, but they're not. I want to go back to the phrases of too many Chiefs, powwow, sitting Indian style. These are things that are very common in our lexicon.
So common.
Explain why they're offensive and should be removed.
I think it's the fact that indigenous culture, there's just no base level. You know, when people talk about racial justice when it comes to other racial groups, especially Black lives. In the last 2 to 3 years, you know, there's been a lot of discussion about what Black Lives Matter means, what are microaggressions, and all of these new terms have come out, and generations before are like, we don't know what any of these things mean. But I think what is so different about these little words and nuances about indigenous cultures is that people have no idea where these are rooted in.
Correct.
And one example that I can point to is the Washington football team. People are like, why did they have to change the name? I don't understand. The term redskin was used historically to describe going out and killing a Native American and bringing them back for money because they were covered in blood. And not to, you know, make it really gruesome, but when I tell people that, they're like, well, of course we should have changed the name. But nobody even has base level understanding. And so to say sitting Indian style, or to say, you know, where this ranks on the totem pole, those are such, a totem pole is such a sacred thing in so many different cultures. And so to not even understand what that means to have a ranking on a totem pole, what that means for things to be, you know, decorated a certain way. Why do you have, you know, tattoos that appropriate culture, or why do you wear Halloween costumes that appropriate our culture? When you have not even the baseline understanding. I think it's more so for me, like, if you instead had that baseline understanding and were able to appreciate it in a way that's propelling a culture forward instead of just doing it ignorantly, then maybe we could have a different conversation. But, you know, to say there's too many Indians and not enough Chiefs is pretty comparable to, you know, too many cooks in the kitchen. Where did that come from? And it's just all of these phrases that we've just picked up as habit, and then you kind of stop and think about them, and you're like, wow, we really don't know. We have no clue why these things were said, and most of them are rooted in a lot of racism and a lot of ignorance and a lot of just naivety about cultures outside your own.
Oh. I mean, you gave me a full education. I think I think there are a lot of common sayings that we use that I've used, and thank you for educating me, because I won't do that anymore. Like, if we're not aware, we're not aware. Do you find it uncomfortable when you find yourself as the only one of one, and then there is, whether it's what you want to do or not, but there's a responsibility to educate? Does that make you feel a way?
I think this specific instance was extremely uncomfortable for me because, you know, I don't want to be somebody that, you know, participates in cancel culture, participates in just writing people off and not having a conversation with humans as individuals.
Yeah.
And so I felt really compelled to call McCall and, you know, to show that level of respect to her as an older player. Did I have to do that? No. But for my own, like, so I could go to sleep at night, I felt really compelled to, you know, have a conversation, say where I was coming from and things like that. And thankfully she was, you know, willing and open to have that conversation. Yeah. But at the same time, that's not necessary. Like, I don't have to. I could have put the tweet out and, you know, said whatever happened,
to you for doing that.
But I think it is interesting being the only one because people do look to me in that space, you know, and I just, sometimes it's like, there are so many different Native Americans in just the United States, and they have so many different cultures that I don't understand, languages, food, and to be a spokesperson for all of that sometimes is a little bit daunting.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, I don't.
Yeah, I can't speak for
I cannot speak.
We're not a monolith. I can't speak for everyone. Yeah, but.
And then on the flip side, you know, the other half of me, which is being a black woman and kind of having more support in that in our league and being able to lean into that, I'm able to kind of take some of how we are able to be united with our BWPC and hopefully move that into a space where other BIPOC people and just women of color that enter this league know that they can feel comfortable in leaning into different communities.
You lead on, sister. Lead on. Like, I love it. Don't we love it? I love it. Okay, so now that we know you're saving and changing the world, let's talk about, I mean, it's just that simple, right? So let's talk about our men. I know you watched the World Cup. Who is your favorite player, and how did you think they did?
Oh, well, I mean, on the men's national team, I was really impressed with Tyler Adams. I thought that he was, you know, box-to-box midfielder. It was really just, honestly, as somebody who prides themselves on just, like, hard work, for him to, you know, just be covering so much ground. There were some times I was like, you don't have to run as much. But it's just really empowering to also see them, you know, doing so well. I saw a tweet from Billie Jean King, though, and she was like, it's amazing what the men did in the World Cup, but I'm so glad that you were able to take the inspiration from the women who have won 4 World Cups.
100%. 100%.
But I think it's really exciting for the men. You know, they have a really young midfield. They have a really young team. And when the World Cup is here in 2026, I think it's going to be really exciting. And it will be able to watch those same players. And before this World Cup, I could not name 6 players, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
And now I can say that I'm fans of them and want to watch them when they play abroad. And I'm just going to be definitely going to be rooting for them.
Guess what? You're not alone. But we all now are all fans. Madison Hammond, thank you so much for coming on my show. You have been, you really have. Continue to do the work that you do. Shine bright.
You too.
And I will see you at a game,
yes,
obviously.
100%.
We're going to hang out.
Yes.
It's official. It's official.
Yes.
We'll be right back in just a few moments. 3 cheers is what we're doing. Giving props to people who are great. That's coming up next on the Cari Champion Show.